For a more in-depth look at some of today's top headlines, we're joined tonight by political analyst and publisher of the Quorum Report, Harvey Kronberg. Harvey, let's start off with this new revelation about Congressman Tony Gonzales, who's in a tough re-election battle, even if he gets out of this primary, this tough primary. Does this give Democrats a better chance in Texas 23, which didn't seem particularly competitive for Democrats at the beginning of this cycle?
I think that district under the newly drawn district was a Trump 15 plus 15 point district, but Tony Gonzales is considered the moderate candidate, although he's obviously very damaged right now. If Brendan Hererra, his opponent, ends up being the nominee, it does create an opening because by most standards he would be considered extreme, especially for that district.
And let's turn now to the Senate race, where the attacks between Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico are heating up. Crockett's new ad says Tallarico is, quote, all talk, doesn't practice what he preaches, and is taking money from billionaires, even though he's running a campaign going against billionaires. Why is this race getting so negative in the final weeks?
Because it's obviously very close and negative. When you run negative ads, you're typically attempting to suppress the other side's vote, not trying to lure their voters necessarily, but suppress their vote, suppress the enthusiasm. Right now, the feel is that Tallarico has most of the enthusiasm and therefore most of the momentum, and the only way to blunt that is to go negative or to be critical. Whether or not the accusations that are in that ad are accurate or irrelevant, we're now in the midst of voting, so there's no real chance to fashion a rejoinder.
And polling shows that neither of these candidates are hitting that 50% threshold, meaning that this could go to a runoff. If this infighting between Crockett and Tallarico continues for another 3 months, isn't that the last thing that Democrats want?
Absolutely. Right now, it's conventional wisdom pretty much that if Tallarico wins, there's going to be a huge infusion of national money. But if they're both bloodied up or continue bloodying each other up, it's going to reduce the impact in the Democratic campaign. Of course, we have to see whether Ken Paxton is the nominee or not. Typically, what would happen is Republicans have a 10-point structural advantage. Most people think that that's cut in half if Ken Paxton ends up being the nominee. So it's hard to figure out whose base is going to be more enthused and where independent voters are going to land.
And more on the Republican side, we're starting to see people concerned about whether incumbent Senator John Cornyn is even going to make it out of this runoff. Harvey, do you really think he should be concerned about that?
Well, he should be concerned about it. Obviously, the old line, if you're not running scared, you're not running seriously. And he should be, because there's not very much enthusiasm behind his campaign. But it doesn't. It would truly be surprising if he didn't make the runoff, simply because he is institutional. He's got an infrastructure on the ground. He's a well-known personality, and Wesley Hunt essentially is a none of the above choice, which may play, I guess, in an anti-incumbent era. But it's hard for me to see a path for Hunt to essentially force Cornyn out of the race.
And he's never lost a statewide race. We have to emphasize that. Let me ask you one more thing. This race
Back to
is
when
now
he was a Supreme Court justice.
Right. This
1990.
This race is now the most expensive in primary history all over the country, with $110 million spent. How much more money do you think that will be spent on this race by the time it's all said and done?
The numbers I hear bandied about are anywhere from 200 to 250 million more dollars spent in Texas on that campaign. And if it ends up that it's Tallarico's in the race, that'll be more money than Democrats have seen on messaging in Texas, probably since in last 25 or 30 years, even measured for inflation or adjusted for inflation. That would be a huge boost for down ballot Democrats, even if they lost at the top of the ticket.
All right, Harvey, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.